Hey, folks. Hope you're all doing pretty well. Um, so we have a new CBA in the NFL. That's always good news, right? We get NFL for 11 more years through 2030. All right. Woohoo. Main things you need to know about this. The cap went up about $10 million to $198 million. So, obviously, teams that were against the cap love to hear that. So, well, who doesn't love to hear a cap went up 10 million? But and keep in mind, and we'll talk about free agency here too, and this goes with it. When you see some of these contracts, um, just remember you pretty much have to go by percentage of the cap used, not just the overall numbers. So, like for instance, let's say a corner made the top corner made $10 million 5 years ago. We'll just use a number, and now they make 15. Well, you've got to remember that the cap is 25 million more than it was 5 years ago. So while they make more money, the percentage of the cap is the same. So just keep that kind of stuff in mind. That's just an example. That's what it is. So just keep that in mind when you do see some of these contracts, especially if a few of them were signed a couple years ago and you're comparing it like, hey, this guy's just as good as this guy, or he's not even as good as this guy. Why is he getting paid more? You got to look at percentage of the cap. So that's just a pro tip. But things you need to know, and people are getting confused on this, so this is why I'm going to tell you. I like to simplify. Okay? So this year, the 2020 season that floats into 2021, obviously with playoffs and all. But the 2020 season is a 16-game schedule, not 17. It is 16 games this year. Okay? Next year, the 2021 season, it will be 17 games. Okay? But this year, it is 16 games. However, 7 teams in each conference making the playoffs for a total of 14 is starting this year. So this year, you have a 16-game schedule, and 7 teams in each conference will make the playoffs. That is this year for you. The 17-game schedule is next season. All right, people are getting that confused. 16 games, 7 teams each making the playoffs, which means only the number 1 seed in each conference will get the bye. So, 2 will play 7, 3, 6, 4, 5, like that. So only the number 1 seed in each conference will get a bye week in the playoffs. My thoughts on adding another playoff team. It's not awful. I don't hate it. I don't love it either because I'm all about you don't want to water stuff down. Like in my opinion, like the NBA. And 2, it just kind of just depends on how much parity you have, basically. Like hockey, it works out 8 teams making the playoffs in each conference because there's enough. The teams just aren't like this far apart a lot. But like in basketball, there's usually a pretty big difference. So it just depends. I think in the NFL, you definitely don't want any more than 7 in each conference. But often there is a team or two that misses the playoffs that could definitely do some damage if they made it. So I don't have a problem with it. But just like with adding a game to the schedule, I don't want to add too many more. You could maybe go to 18, but definitely no more than that. Because the greatest thing about football is the sense of urgency. Every month matters. And that's what makes football the best, in my opinion. Like you can love baseball, but a baseball team can be awful for 2 months and still make the playoffs. A basketball team can be awful for 2 months and make the playoffs. If you're awful for 2 months in the NFL, you're sitting at home come playoff time. That's it's the sense of urgency that just football has. So that's the only reason why it's like, just don't get carried away with how many games you're playing and how many teams you're letting make the playoffs. But overall, I don't think it's a bad thing. Other things you need to know. Marijuana. Hot topic the last few years, right? A player cannot be suspended for just marijuana use. However, they can be fined pretty substantially over the course of time. Now, a lot of people don't realize you didn't get suspended for one failed test for marijuana in the old one. You had to fail like 4 times before you started getting suspended. It was either 3 or 4 times. So this was not like a one strike, you automatically get suspended type thing. It didn't used to be that. That's what a lot of people don't understand. But you would still get fined, but you can't be suspended just for marijuana use anymore. So that was obviously a big deal for the players. Again, I've always said on this, it doesn't matter if you think marijuana is bad or not. I've always said, if it's in the contract, you can't take X, you don't freaking do it. It's to me, it's just that simple. It doesn't matter what it is. I've used the example of like Snicker bars. If they said, hey, you've agreed in the new CBA, you can't eat Snicker bars. Doesn't matter if they're actually bad for you or not. Maybe they've been proven to be great for you. It doesn't matter. If it says you can't do it, you can't do it. So if you do it, you're a moron. That was always what I was like with the marijuana. Like, again, you just change it like they did. Negotiated it. But I've always said it had nothing to do for me with, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing or whatever. It was, you knew you couldn't do it. Don't do it. But, so yeah, you will not see suspensions for marijuana. There's a few other things like the players get anywhere between 1% to 1.8%, depending on certain revenue things that they get increased revenue, so they get a bigger piece of the pie. Again, another reason they wanted to get this done. It sounded like there was a real chance more than ever, here recently, of if they didn't get a deal done this offseason here, you could have had a problem next season. You would have seen missed football, I'm pretty convinced. So it did barely pass by like 60 votes or something. It was something very small. The big guys were against it. All the little guys were for it. That is basically what it was. That's why it passed, because there's more little guys than big guys. But I found it very interesting. Ryan Fitzpatrick spoke out for it, and he made very good points, which that's a guy you probably want to listen to. And think about it. He's going to be a retired player with his deal, so he has nothing to gain or lose from it. So it was an opinion that I think a lot of people valued. And he made some good points. And with this coronavirus thing going on, right now, this is probably going to be your biggest TV deal. Because what do TV want? They want to know that you're going to be here. So you kind of got TV by the bullet. Like, hey, NFL, they're king. All right, we'll pay you the X amount of $1 billion for it. Well, come next year, you never know. Might get less. So overall, it's good news for us. We won't get into all the business stuff that doesn't really affect us. But just mainly the games. Remember, it's a 16-game schedule this year. And then the restructured playoffs of 7 in each conference. And then next year it's a 17-game season and playoffs. 7 teams in each playoff. That was really the main thing that affected you, and the cap going up $10 million for spend more money. So speaking of spending more money, we'll get into free agency here. I've got a big list. I'll try to go through as many teams as possible here, ones that stick out. This might be a long video. You might have to skip around if you want to try to hear your team, but I'm going to leave a link. All this information I'm going to read here is in a link down below. It'll take you to NFL.com, nowhere fishy that's going to give you viruses or anything. And you can look up your team of all the additions and all the additions to all the teams. And they update it constantly. So you can keep using this link. I bookmark it or whatever, and it'll tell you because they update it every day. Because usually something happens every day, whether it's small or big. So I'll leave a link. That's really the main thing you need to know. You probably don't even need to hear me talking about it after the 10-minute mark. It'll all be in the link below. But we'll go over a few things because let's face it, a lot of us has nothing else to do. But I work at a grocery store, so hey, I'm an essential worker. Who knew? Who knew? After all these years, I'm essential. There's a few of us out there. You know who you are. I know who you are. I won't start naming names because I'll forget somebody. But it's not funny, but you get what I mean. Who would have thought the retail grocery store clerk is essential? Normally, I wouldn't say looked down upon, but kind of like taken for granted for sure. Now we're essential workers. Kind of, like I said, kind of funny. But, so yeah. But I do feel, like I said, this whole thing's just a mess. We all know it. I'm proud to have a job. I'm not complaining. But yeah, we're all forced to work 6 days, a lot of hours. So be nice to those people because let's face it, if anyone's getting the coronavirus, it's those freaking people. And those freaking people don't make a lot of money, folks. So I'm just telling you, don't feel sorry for them. I'm just saying, treat them nice. Okay? Anyways, NFL free agency. We'll start with the Cardinals, which started pretty much with a blockbuster trade. So why it's not necessarily a free agency edition. We had DeAndre Hopkins, who had been rumored last season. A lot of people forget this. Last season, Bill O'Brien was floating him around a little bit. And supposedly him and DeAndre don't get along. And you know how they say there's always two sides to every story? But it seems like every story I've read on this seems like a Bill O'Brien problem. And this is the danger in letting your coach be the GM as well. You know, it's just so tough because the coach is going to be more emotional, typically. And the GM is more, I'm the businessman. All right. So usually the coach is playing, you know, make nice. GM's kind of like, hey, here's the business, you know. And Bill O'Brien, I think the emotions got the best of him, and he made a bad trade. It wasn't just trading DeAndre Hopkins, but you had to get a first-round pick if you were going to trade him. Like you'll see later on with the Vikings. Might not like the trade, but at least they got the first rounder. They got a second rounder, and they took back David Johnson, who even if you think, okay, you know what? He's going to be healthy, and he's going to be like he was 2-3 years ago. Even if you think that, his contract's bad. He actually makes more than as much or more than DeAndre Hopkins. Who would you rather have for $13 million a year? David Johnson, DeAndre Hopkins. You'll take DeAndre Hopkins every day of the week. And all he got out of it was a second-round pick, basically. So you took a bad contract in David Johnson, which outside of 1 year, not going to be worth that contract. There's no way. For a sure thing in DeAndre Hopkins. So, and you got to remember, you're going to have to start signing your quarterback. That might cause a problem. So Bill O'Brien, major screw up and the danger of that. They also signed Jordan Phillips, former Dolphin. You could always see potential in him, just not consistent. Then he went to the Bills and was pretty darn good as a defensive tackle. So I like that signing for the Cardinals. Larry Fitzgerald's coming back for another season. Some indication you might have missed that. With incentives, he could make up to $11 million, it says. So Kenyon Drake, that's why they traded David Johnson. Seemed to be a good fit for that offense. Kind of more of a spread style. Good fit for Kenyon Drake. He signed his transition tag tender, which I don't remember how much it pays. And they also signed Devon Kennard from the Lions, 3 years, $20 million. Decent signing. Supposedly wasn't a fit with. Speaking of another coach that looks like he's going to be getting fired soon, Matt Patricia. But overall, the Cardinals did very well, I'd say. I would imagine with that first round pick, they'll probably be looking at an offensive lineman, but who knows? Anyway, so keep going. Atlanta Falcons. They love first round picks. And when I say first-round picks, I mean people who were former first-round picks. There was a thing going around that shows you on their whole offense. It's like all first-round picks. So it's kind of funny. So, but let's see the big one: Dante Fowler, 3-year, $48 million. Again, is he the guy that played along Aaron Donald last season, or is he the guy in Jacksonville who's just a decent player? They're going to hope he was the guy last season. Todd Gurley, released by the Rams. Let's see. 1 year, $6 million, but he also gets like $11 million from the Rams, I think. So whatever. They had another bonus. He had another $10 million bonus or something, and they cut him the day before that. But he still, and this is another thing, people, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little off track. Just because you don't owe a guy any money doesn't mean he doesn't count against your cap. So I'll give you, for instance, we aren't there yet, but the Dolphins released Rashad Jones, right? His cap number was like 11, 12 million. Why we don't owe him any money, he still counts against our cap for releasing. There's still a penalty. So what you will hear some is a post June 1st. This could get delayed, but usually post June 1st designation, you'll hear that. And what that means is you can split that cap hit over 2 years. So now a team like the Dolphins, who still have some cap space, even after all these signings we'll get into, you can take that $11 million now, or $12 million, or whatever it is, and just take the hit this year, and that's called dead money, which the Dolphins led the league last year in dead money for a rebuild. Bills did it the year prior to that, and that's the term dead money. You'll see this with the Patriots this year. They have Tom Brady, $13 million dead money this season. So just remember that, folks. Just because a team releases a player, now it depends on the guy's contract. That's complicated. I'm not getting all that. But just because they don't owe them money doesn't mean they don't count against their cap. So just keep that in mind. That's a misconception sometimes around the casual fan of, since NFL players don't have guaranteed contracts, all teams can just release them without any repercussion. Even if they don't owe them money, it still hurts their cap. So, just like we paid Ndamukong Suh over 2 years. So, like I said, that's where that June 1st, you'll hear that June 1st designation. And if it's post June 1st, you get to split it up over 2 years. So if the guy's cap hits 12, you'll pay 6 each year. Or you can just do it all in 1 year. So, anyways, to Baltimore, they got a couple veteran defensive linemen. Michael Brockers, 3-year, $30 million. Calais Campbell acquired in a trade for just a 5th-round pick. Best years behind him, but still a decent player. Baltimore, everything they do usually just makes kind of sense for the most part. So they're definitely in win-now mode. Signing Brocker, signing Campbell. They tagged Judon. Looks like they're going to keep their center. So, yeah. And you saw last year, all the offense is pretty much going to stay the same. So, outside of Hayden Hurst going to the Falcons, which I didn't complete with the Falcons, because they had a boatload of tight ends, so they didn't really need it. But anyways, Ravens just obviously trying to win now. They've got veteran players for sure. The Bills continue to do good things, I think, if you're a Bill fan. Mario Addison from the Panthers. He signed a 3-year, $30 million deal. He's a pass rusher. One-trick pony, basically, but he's pretty good at it. He'll probably get him 10 sacks. Vernon Butler. You will notice you're seeing a lot of guys that were former Panthers. You want to know why they're signing former Panthers on defense? Sean McDermott used to be the Panther defensive coordinator, so that's why you see those. He's joined because I have a third one, and Josh Norman Remember when he got a big deal a few years back with the Redskins? He signed a 1-year, $6 million deal with the Bills. But the main thing with the Bills was the Stephon Diggs trade with the Vikings. They gave up a 2020 first rounder and then like a fifth, sixth, Basically, it was for a first round pick. Diggs did a lot of bitching and whining. Kind of just sounded like they were kind of sick of it. So that's what I can kind of gather from it. So that's that. I think for the Bills, they definitely needed to get, whether you argue he's a number one or not, definitely a high number two if he's not a number one. So it was a deal I think they could afford to make. Yeah, they gave up a first rounder, but they're building a solid squad. I think they're doing it right. They're just hoping their young players, their quarterback continues to get better, and then they're signing a few vets along the way. So overall, I think if you're a Bills fan, you're feeling pretty good. Panthers, they re-signed Kyle Allen. He's going to be the backup. See Trey Boston. They didn't do a whole lot until you get to Teddy Bridgewater. Signed him to a 3-year, $63 million deal, which obviously means Cam Newton is gone. Now, the reason you are not seeing a Cam Newton, wow, we really need Cam Newton, is because with all this coronavirus mess, you can't really get your team doctor to go see him to see if he can pass a physical. Now, remind you of Cam Newton, he's not healthy yet anyways. So I think with this Cam Newton thing, you're going to see closer to training camp. You're going to see post-draft, I think. Maybe a draft day style thing like what happened to Josh Rosen last year, but it's not happening before the draft, I don't think. So if you're wondering what the delay is, by the way, some of these guys that signed some contracts, these contracts are not official on a lot of them. Now, some of them are. On a lot of them because of the physical problem. They can't get their doctors, with all this mess going on. So don't be surprised if in a month or so you're seeing deal voided, like, I'm just using this as an example, Todd Gurley not going to the Falcons because he didn't pass a physical or something like that. Just an example. The other big thing they did was they swapped offensive linemen. This was a very interesting trade. The Panthers acquired Russell Okung from the Chargers in exchange for guard Trey Turner, who I would say Turner, even though he's a guard, is probably a better offensive lineman right now than Russell Okung. But it's the whole tackle versus guard thing. I think it's less of a big deal now because there's so many defensive tackles that are like defensive ends. I think a guard's just about just as valuable as a tackle now. But that's a trade they make. So they got a guy in Okung that's like 3 years older. I realize he plays tackle, but I didn't love that one. I felt like the Chargers got the better end of that one. In my opinion, I think they just got the better player. More dependable, put it that way. The Bears, they're a mess. There's certain teams you're like the Bills, for instance. I can at least see a plan, right? I see what your plan is. You can think the plan stinks, but I at least see what it is. Texans are like the Bears. What's their plan? I can't figure it out. So they signed Artie Burns, cheap 1-year thing. Maybe we can get something out of him the Steelers could. Okay, that's whatever. They signed Jimmy Graham. Kind of old, still big body, still can catch some touchdowns. Whatever. Okay? But then they let Leonard Floyd go. They were going to originally pick up his 5th-year option, I think. And they reneged on it. So he goes to the Rams, and Robert Quinn, who is a better pass rusher than Leonard Floyd, but remember, older, and they give him a 5-year, $70 million deal. Now, also, remember with these contracts, folks, most of these 5-year deals are 3-year deals. So keep that in mind. in terms of what you're on the hook money-wise for. Most of these 5-year deals are really 3-year deals. In Robert Quinn's case, see, this is where I wish I had my other sheet. I think it's really like a 1 or 2 year deal when I was looking at it. But either way, they signed Robert Quinn. That's obviously a win-now move. Him and Jimmy Graham are win-now moves. And then they get Nick Foles in a trade, which that's very interesting because they're a team that is against the cap. They don't have a ton of cap space. So they bring Nick Foles in. They did restructure his deal to make it a little more friendly. So now you have Trubisky and Foles are eating up a good portion of the cap for a team that needed an offensive lineman so desperately and haven't signed one. Does Nick Foles make them better than Mitch Trubisky? Is Nick Foles just... You had a couple good seasons with the Eagles, magical years. Other than that, he's been ass. So, what is he? You know, he's obviously a good locker room guy. There's nothing... Like, even if Trubisky would beat him out, he wouldn't cause any problems. But, again, I'm just not sure what they're doing. You know, are you trading Mitch Trubisky? Or what's your plan? I don't really know what it is. Because they had to address the offensive line, and they haven't done it. And the problem is they have no draft picks to really address it. That's another problem. So, again, it's just a team I don't feel like has a plan. Anyways, Bengals, they actually signed some free agents. Typically, the Bengals are not a free agent signing team. They are a draft, develop, keep their own guys. Too expensive, they let them walk, whatever. They're not big free agency, but they signed big DJ Reader from the Texans. 4-year, $53 million. He's, I don't like to use these terms, but a Vince Wilfork type guy, he's not Vince Wilfork. But run stuffer, can also get a little push in the pass game. But it's a lot to pay for a big defensive tackle that is not a dynamic pass rusher. It was a guy I would like the Dolphins to look at until I saw the contract, and I'm glad they did. Put it that way. But still a good, solid player. And then they signed 2 Viking corners, Trey Waynes and Mackenzie Alexander. Both, I would say, underachieved from what, especially Trey Waynes, he was a little up and down. Had some good, had some bad. So that's a 3-year, $42 million deal. So we'll see. Bengals just kind of, not bad. I mean, you could look back and be like, man, that really paid off for their defense, or they're the Bengals. Browns started off with signing Austin Hooper. I said, great, you have Beckham, Landry, and Hooper making shit tons of money, right? And you didn't address the offensive line. However, they did. That was my initial thought because the Hooper thing was announced first. They did get Jack Conklin from the Titans, which was a must. Kind of mauler. To me, still pass protection can get had, but he's a mauler in the run game. Good signing. That's what they had to do. Kareem Hunt got placed with a second-round tender, so he's going to be a Brown next season. No one's going to pay Kareem Hunt and give up a second-round pick. He's going to be a Brown next season. Carl Joseph, been hurt with the Raiders, but started to show a little promise. Who knows? The interesting thing was the Case Keenum. This was the Baker's our guy, but I don't. Just in case we can't trust him, you signed Case Keenum to a 3-year, $18 million deal. So that was the highlights there. The Dallas Cowboys basically re-signed a lot of their own guys. Dak Prescott getting franchised, as you all know. They did sign Gerald McCoy, another guy, best years behind him. Still a decent player, but best years behind him. Re-signed Sean Lee, he's going to be a part-time player. Blake Jarwin getting $8 million a year. Guy who shows up about 2 or 3 weeks out of the year. Seemed a little steep. Amari Cooper, 5-year, $100 million. what Amari Cooper are you going to get? He's been good about 2 years out of his career so far. Year and a half, 2 years, basically. Which one do you get? So, and Clinton Dix, who I think is just a guy at safety. Not bad, just a guy. So overall, Cowboys spending some money, keeping their own guys, but just I don't think they're any better. Put it that way. The Denver Broncos trade I liked. If you will notice, the Jags are starting to trade away. They traded away Jalen Ramsey last year, traded away Nick Foles, they traded away Calais Campbell. Now they traded away AJ Bouye to the Broncos for a fourth rounder. So I think that was a good pickup for the Broncos. They had the cap space to take on Bouye's contract. Justin Simmons got the franchise tag, which that was expected. Oh, excuse me. It was expected. Bram Glasgow, guard, 4-year, $44 million. A little more than I thought he would get, but still solid. They also got Jarrell Casey from the Titans, which I was surprised to see the Titans getting rid of him. He's just one of those, he was a Titan, you know? So it was basically, hey, we take his contract, you can basically have him. They only gave up 7th-round picks. So Broncos making moves to win now for sure. So they obviously believe in Drew Lock, or they wouldn't be doing this. The head scratcher for me, Melvin Gordon, 2 years, $16 million. I think most of it's guaranteed. Yeah, 13.5 guaranteed. So it's basically is a 2-year deal. You had Lindsey, you had Royce Freeman. Both look pretty good. Remember, Jawan James was hurt for them at tackle all last year. He should be back, obviously. I don't really get that one. Again, that's one of those like, okay, maybe Melvin Gordon. Is Melvin Gordon better than Philip Lindsay? Is he better than Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman together? I mean, I would say they're about the same at least. So, just kind of strange. So, we'll see if one of those guys gets traded. That one seemed kind of weird. But, yeah, that was Broncos. Lions. Okay, this is another what the hell. Seems like the coach is definitely running things there, and it's not going well. They get Jamie Collins, 3-year, $30 million. I didn't even think he was that great when he came back to the Patriots this go around, so I was kind of surprised by that. They also signed Deron Harmon from the Patriots. Again, I get guys getting familiar. Danny Shelton. I had no problem with Harmon and Shelton. Collins, I don't know. I don't know if I love that one. They signed Vaitai from the Eagles at tackle and gave him 5 years, $50 million. So, a guy who did play some quality minutes in the Super Bowl and whatnot a couple years ago. Definitely up and down, but they're banking, hey, as a full-time player, he's only going to get better. That's what they're banking on. And if he does get a little better, then he's a steal at $10 million a year at left tackle or right tackle. So, yeah, and they signed Nick Williams from the Bears, a rotational defensive tackle. Yeah, not a lot of good stuff here, to be quite frank. Lions fans, I'm sorry. Because you also traded Darius Slay and didn't get a whole lot back for him. So, a lot of disgruntled players, it seems like. The Patricia experiment to this point failure. Green Bay Packers, remember last year they spent a bunch of money on defense and it worked out. So this year, obviously, not doing that again. However, Brian Bulaga out the door. That'll be, I imagine that'll be weird for Packer fans. But they did sign Ricky Wagner to, oh, it doesn't say what, they haven't got the update yet of the price. But, and then they signed Christian Kirksey from the Browns, 2 years, $16 million. Solid player, had some injury problems. But the Bulaga thing, kind of surprising. But yeah. overall, this was more Packer-like in terms of free agency. Not much going on. Houston Texans, obviously trading away Mr. Hopkins. They had to sign a wide receiver. They went the Randall Cobb route, 3-year, $27 million. Again, not a bad guy to have around for Deshaun Watson. If you also had DeAndre Hopkins there, you know. Let's see what else they acquired. David Johnson, which I mentioned. Um, and the Bradley Roby leaving the Broncos, going to the Texans, 3-year, $36 million. Yeah, Roby, another guy, a little up and down, but definitely has skills. I've always liked him. We'll see how he does in Houston. But overall, again, Bill O'Brien gets his team in the playoffs, so it's hard to say he sucks. I'm not, but it's just he can't be the GM. So, anyways, Indianapolis Colts, they get DeForest Buckner, who I thought between him and Eric Armstead, Buckner's the better player overall. But because he's the better player, he's also more expensive, and you could get more for him. So that's why they traded him and kept Armstead. So Buckner goes to the Colts, who have plenty of cap space, by the way, have for the last couple of years. And they gave him a massive extension, $21 million a year. So they overpaid for a defensive tackle. You know how I feel about that. But the guy does also rush the passer from the inside. So I don't love paying defensive tackles huge money because you can take them out of the game. But he is a hell of a defensive tackle. Costanzo staying around at tackle for 2 years. That's good news for the new quarterback, Phillip Rivers, who gets reunited with Frank Reich. I actually thought Rivers might retire. And it sounded like it was going to be either Colts or retirement, from what I was reading. So he decides to have a $25 million deal 1 year and see if he can get that elusive championship with the Colts. The Colts still, because T.Y. Hilton banged up. They drafted Paris Campbell last year. Does he improve? Still got to find another receiver for Phillip. But yeah, they still have cap space. That GM, again, that's a guy who has a plan. I think you're in good hands of at least being competitive. But Jacoby Brissett for now, I think we've seen overall he's a backup. You don't want him starting 16. Jacksonville Jaguars, I told you they're in rebuild mode. However, it is signed Joe Schobert from the Browns, 5-year, $53. Schobert, he's the guy always around the ball, makes a lot of plays, but also runs himself out of a lot of plays. So that's why I think some teams, like he's a guy I always liked, but I know why I'm sure some teams stayed away is because he's a freelancer. So, holy crap, I'm almost at 40 minutes. What up, Dave Archer? Come on. Like I said, all this information I'll have a link below. But we're just shooting the shit. You can skip to the end if you want. That's all. The Chiefs. The key is they resigned Chad Henne. Do we need to say anything else? No, but they franchised Chris Jones and picked up Damian Williams, running back option. Not a whole lot going on here, and you won't see it because you remember we're going to have to pay Patrick Mahomes next season. So, yeah, you got that. So not much going on with the champs. What's next? Raiders signed Nelson Aguilar. I'm sure Philly fans love, hate, mainly hate probably with Nelson Aguilar, though. He signs a 1-year deal with the Raiders. Eli Apple also going to the Raiders. Malik Collins, defensive tackle from the Cowboys. And Jeff Heath from the Cowboys. So a couple Cowboys. Really focusing on the linebacker position because they had one of the worst linebacking corps in the league last season. So they get Corey Littleton from the Rams, 3-year, $36, and Nick Kwiatkowski as well. And Jason Witten. This is the stuff I hate to see. It's like, I don't want to ever tell a guy to retire if he wants to keep playing. So, I mean, I don't mean it like that. But it's like, I don't want to see you in another uniform. You know? It's like what you're seeing a lot with these quarterbacks like Phillip Rivers. I don't want to see Phillip Rivers in a Colts uniform. But you're going to see Jason Witten in a Raider uniform. So, again, good, probably good for the locker room and whatnot. Yeah, overall, I think decent signing period. They also got Mariota as a backup to Derek Carr. The Chargers definitely. I found this very interesting. They let Rivers walk, so they made some good signings for win now approach. So are you drafting a quarterback, or are you in like the Cam Newton type of thing? I don't know. It'd be very interesting. Chargers are very intriguing. But they signed Balaga, 3 year, $30 million. Re-signed Eckler, obviously like Gordon Locke, but they signed Chris Harris. Best years behind him, but still a hell of a corner, slot corner, 2 years, $17 million. Surprised they tagged Hunter Henry. Surprised they obviously probably just they want to see him stay healthy. You know, I think that's really what it is. Because I would imagine they could have got a little cheaper just doing a deal, but either way, not a big deal. And Linval Joseph still has a few years left in him, I feel like. And best years behind him, but still a good player on the inside of defensive tackle. And I mentioned the trade Turner thing earlier. To me, they got the better player back and more dependable. So overall, Chargers made win-now moves. They don't have a win-now quarterback yet. So very interesting to see. The Rams. I have a feeling this thing's just about to blow up, don't you? I mean, they missed, last year, but I mentioned they signed Leonard Floyd earlier, 1 year, $10 million. Basically, a Leonard Floyd. Do you do what Dante Fowler did and earn yourself a big contract, playing alongside Donald? We'll see. They also signed Ashawn Robinson, average player, I feel like. And I was shocked to see Andrew Whitworth getting a multi-year deal. So 3-year max. Could be $37 million with incentives and whatnot. Yeah, that was the Rams. Now to my Dolphins. For the most part, I liked what they did. Signing Eric Flowers. You remember, a lot of people hear the term Eric Flowers and they think bust. As a tackle, yes, but as a guard with the Redskins last year, he was actually very good. Very good in the run game and solid in the pass game at guard. So he was one of the top 5 guards, according to Pro Football Focus. So if anything's an upgrade over last season, first of all. But 3-year, $30 million. If we get the Giants' Eric Flowers, now mind you, I would imagine we're playing Eric Flowers to guard. I would hope if they signed him, you saw, hey, this dude's a guard, not a tackle. I think that's okay. Kruger Hill signed him from the Eagles, a depth linebacker, might play a little bit, good on special teams. Jordan Howard, signing a vet running back to go inevitably with a rookie running back that we draft in the first couple rounds. I like that. Solid back. Byron Jones, 5-year, $82 million. So this is back-to-back years. Dolphins pay more than $15 million a year for a corner. If they can stay healthy. If Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, there is no better duo in the NFL. Don't at me with anything else. If they're both healthy, that's the best duo in the NFL right now. So, in a passing league, you want pass rushers, you want corners. So, and you want a linebacker that can cover. So those are the 3 main points you want on the defense. So, but Xavier Howard's knee works. So that was a lot of money, but he's a good player. He's solid. Again, if healthy, I don't see us just going, oh, that was horrible. Okay, so Ted Karras, center slash guard, very good pass blocker, average run blocker. Again, an upgrade over anything we had. It's a 1-year, $4 million deal. The one I didn't love was Shaq Lawson. Hasn't shown me a whole lot with the Bills. We gave him 3 years, $30 million. He's being rejoined with one of his college coaches, so maybe that does it. He's good actually against the run. But how much pass rush ability does he have at the NFL level? It hasn't really shown me a consistency with that. I don't love that. Emmanuel Ogbah, when healthy with the Chiefs last year, very good two-way, both against the run and the pass. So that was 2 year, $15 million. Definitely worth a shot at that price, in my opinion. I like that one. Landon Roberts, former Patriot. He was the guy that played fullback some for him. He's a depth linebacker, no big deal. And then Kyle Van Noy, we paid a little too much money for, but he's a versatile player. Fits what Flores wants to do. I don't really have a huge problem. The only one I really didn't love was the Shaq Lawson, so I'm hoping I'm wrong on that. And maybe with the Bills, just they didn't use him right, maybe. Who knows? But, that's the only one I went, I didn't love that. But overall, they did a good job. They got a couple offensive linemen they had to do. They got a couple of defensive ends they had to get. They got a vet linebacker / pass rusher in Van Noy. Overall, they did what they needed to do. So they have flexibility now in the draft. I think they can take best player if they want. In each of their spots. So they have, 6 picks in the top 70, including 3 first rounders. So you hope 4 of those 6 work out is basically what you're hoping. But anyways, the Vikings, I think you're starting to see their window not close, but closing. They did franchise tag Anthony Harris, which when you listen to the head coach, Zimmer, I didn't think they were going to do that. But again, that's why you don't have the head coach doing it. But either way. And then they signed Michael Pierce from the Ravens to replace Joseph. So he's a run stuffer. That's what he does. So overall, they traded Diggs away, got a first rounder, so he's that. But I think you're seeing the Vikings window for championship closing. The Patriots, obviously the big news is no more Tom Brady in a Patriot chip. So that's kind of sad. They did lose Van Noy as well. They lost some guys. They did re-sign Devin McCourty, however, 2 year, $23 million. Adrian Phillips, former Charger. I have a feeling he's going to be a good fit in New England. I think that was a solid pickup in the secondary. Joe Thuney. I think this is who the Dolphins were after, but they placed the franchise tag on him. And they re-signed Matthew Slater. So great special teamer. Good to see him staying around. But overall, Patriots, definitely not any better. So that's a chance for the AFC East, particularly Bills and Dolphins made the biggest jumps. But Dolphins still, the couple-year plan, folks. Just remember, got to build a roster. It takes a couple years. But the Saints, they re-signed Drew Brees. Taysom Hill's going to be back because no one's going to sign him. They placed a first-round tender, so no one's going to sign him and give up a first-round pick, so he'll be back in New Orleans. Malcolm Jenkins coming back to New Orleans. Sean Payton's always said he's regretted letting Malcolm Jenkins walk. He is now a Saint again. He is 32 years old, however. I don't know, but he's steady. He doesn't get hurt. He's out there. Kind of surprised the Eagles didn't pick up that last year of his option on it. Kind of surprised, but now you will find out why here a little later. And then they signed Emmanuel Sanders, who I can't see that being a bad thing with him and Breeze. They re-signed Andres Pete, who has been very average, to be quite honest with you. I'm surprised they gave him $57 million on a 5-year deal. He's not been great. And then they signed DJ Schranger, hard-hitting safety. So overall, Saints are pretty much the same. Should be another playoff contender. The Giants signed James Bradbury. Good deal. I think he's a good corner from the Panthers. Cam Fleming, tackle, more of a rotational guy. Blake Martinez leaves the Packers for the Giants. 3-year, $30 million. Guy who makes a lot of tackles, but also makes a lot of tackles 7 yards down the field. So, Blake Martinez, again, a guy who's around the ball a lot. A little like Joe Schobert, but also out of position a lot, I feel like. So, go with the bat again. And Leonard Williams got the franchise tag from the Giants. So, main pickup was basically the corner and the linebacker. The Jets, their big thing was George Fant from the Seahawks, 3-year, $27 million to play tackle. I think just an average tackle, quite frankly. Again, they needed somebody, but they also signed a center, Connor McGovern. Other than that, not a whole lot going on. Signed Greg Van Roten on the. They addressed the offensive line, basically, is what they did, which is never a bad thing, but not too much sexiness going on from the Jets. The Eagles, one of the guys I loved in free agency and didn't realize he was going to get this much money was Javon Hargrave from the Steelers. He had 3-year, $39 million. So I thought he was a $10 million guy. He got 13. Good player, though. A lot of casual fans might not realize. Very good player on the defensive line. Rodney McLeod re-signed 2-year, $12 million. Jalen Mills, whatever. But they got Darius Slay and paid him big money, 3-year, $50 million. Very similar to the Byron Jones deal in terms of per year. Obviously, for a couple years now, they needed a big corner. That's why they had to let Jenkins walk, basically, so they could sign Slay. So, there you go. That's what the Eagles did. Steelers, typical Steelers here. Franchise tag Bud Dupree, bring back their own. And Eric Ebron. See how he does with the Steelers. You know, he had the one big touchdown year with the Colts a couple years ago, but 2-year, $12 million. So we will see. Then they got Chris Wormley, rotational defensive lineman from the Ravens in a trade. But typical Steelers, not a lot going on in free agency. The 49ers re-signed Eric Armstead to a big 5-year, $85 million. That is too much for Eric Armstead, I believe. I realize he did have great sack numbers and whatnot, but I don't think you're going to see that duplicated. But like I said, Buckner was the better player, but also he made $21 million a year. So I got it. Still a good player. Don't love that contract. And not much else really going on with the 49ers. Seahawks. Another team, not a whole lot going on except Greg Olson, 1-year, $7 million. So we'll see what happens there. And Cedric Ohidebo, tackle. Who, the way the Seahawks tackles and linemen get hurt, we'll see a lot of time. But, yeah, not a whole lot going on in Seattle either. To Tampa, obviously nothing happened in Tampa, so we don't need to talk about it. Okay, so Tampa. Tom Brady obviously signs 2-year, $50 million. So, and each year he can make like $4.5 more million based on incentives. So, got a very similar contract to Breeze and Rivers, around the $25 million a year mark base. Let's see what else they did. Shaq Barrett, who had a great season last season with the franchise tag, and they re-signed Jason Pierre-Paul. So basically, the Buccaneers are hoping at quarterback cut the turnovers in half, and we're going to make the playoffs. That is basically their thinking. How much does Tom Brady have left? He really was not very good last season. So you're going to find out because he has no excuse here. They got a decent offensive line. They got weapons. So you have to assume they did sign Brady. You know, if he cuts, he's obviously going to cut the turnovers down from Jameis Winston. But yeah, interesting. The Bucks are interesting. I am not as high and freaking out. Oh, Tom Brady to the Bucks as everyone else. I think Brady is starting to deteriorate for sure. But like I said, with those weapons, he still should have a good season. Tennessee Titans, I think, make a big mistake. Signing Ryan Tannehill to the, and I'm so happy for this guy. I love the guy, I really do. But 4 years, 118 million, 62 guaranteed. I think they're going to regret that. And then they place the franchise tag in Derrick Henry with running backs. That's what you do. You pay them a lot of money in a short time, 1 year at a time. Don't blame them. I know Derrick Henry would like it. And then I like the upside play. Vic Beasley, what is he? I would say by now he's inconsistent pass rusher, but can have some big games for sure. So overall, the Titans, I get why they signed him. Again, I get it, but I just think they're going to regret it in the long run. But who knows? Especially with Conklin on the way out, that's a thing to fill in. They traded Casey away, so we'll see. But again, I get the reason they paid him, but it's just a lot of money for a middle of the road quarterback. So. The Redskins, last but not least here. Hey, we're gonna might make an hour video. No one's gonna watch this. All right. So Sean Davis, athletic safety from the Steelers. He gets a 1 year, $5 million deal. That's a decent signing. Thomas Davis still around. Yeah, he is. And you might say, why is Thomas Davis? Why is he going to the Redskins? Remember, Ron Rivera, head coach now in Washington, so that is why he wants Thomas Davis there. That guy, even after multiple knee surgeries, he can still run a little bit. So, Kendall Fuller, 4 year contract, $40 million. He had a good end of the year last year. J.D. McKissick, scat back, nothing too sure. They franchise tag Brandon Scherf, another guy. I'm sure the Bears probably wanted to become available, but Bears or Dolphins probably wanted to become available and was not. They did franchise him, and that's about it. So put down below, skip to the end. What was your favorite free agent signing for your own team, and then just for anybody in general? What was the best signing out there, and then what was your favorite signing for your favorite team? Doesn't have to be the biggest name, just it could be best value, whatever. So, what was the best signing of free agency do you feel? I'm not counting trades, so don't give me Stephon Diggs or DeAndre Hopkins. I'm not counting the trades. In terms of just signings, what was your favorite out there? But that's all I got. If you watch this, I appreciate it. Hopefully you learned something from it. Like I said, I'll leave this link below. Save it, bookmark it, keep referring to it because they update it constantly. So yeah, love you all. Thanks for watching. And hopefully we get some sports back here pretty soon.